All right, so we're over here in Blender 3.2 and we're going to be playing with collection assets. Now, this is part of a modular series, so if you haven't watched the grid video, go watch that first, come back to this one. We're going to be building all of this off of the grid. Now, more or less, collection assets, you can think of them as prefabs for Unity or blueprint actors for Unreal Engine. And so we're going to turn the timeline into the asset browser real quick. Just to recap on the asset browser, you can work in a current file, but you can also save this Blender scene somewhere. When you go to Edit Preferences, set up a file path, you can click the little plus sign and create a name for it, and then load up that directory, that folder, and then you'll always have your assets available. So you can see I got characters kind of here. But we're going to go ahead and get started now. So we're going to rename the base collection here. We're going to call this one Assets. And we're going to create a new collection. So right click, new collection. You can see it puts it in there. We want it at the bottom though. We're going to call this one Prefabs. Okay, and that's where our assets are going to go, our collection assets. Do one more collection. Once again, we got to pull it back out. Seems to be the case here in Blender. He just likes to create in those, but nonetheless, we're going to call this one Scene. Okay, and so this is going to develop a kind of a hierarchy that will allow you to make things a little bit quicker, faster, and easier. Now, you could use 1, 2, and 3 to kind of hide different collections and stuff, so just keep that in mind. That's something you can do, but it doesn't really work out too well when we're working this way. So just leave all these as the eyeball on or whatever, and then just check assets, uncheck the other ones. You can click and drag if you have a bunch of stuff going on, so keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and create a plane real quick. We're going to start knocking out some walls here. And so in the assets collection is where this is all going to go. You see here, I'm just snapping it to the grid real quick. So we got a 2 by 3 meter wall, basically. That's it, right? Now, this plane needs to go into assets. There we go. I'm going to call this, I'm just going to name it static mesh wall A. And that'll work for now. Now, you'll notice I didn't offset this. You don't actually have to offset these. I do personally, but this is actually kind of optional. And you don't have to necessarily do that. You could just, when you create your prefab, offset it there. Okay. And so that might be something that works out a little bit better for you depending on what you're working on. Keep trying to mention that in the videos, but sometimes maybe it doesn't seem like I say it enough or something. So anyways, let's go ahead and push this out. So we got the origin point right here. This is okay. So I'm going to actually duplicate this wall. Go ahead and create a door frame area. Double this by width. I'm going to try to go through this as fast as possible when it comes to modeling because we got a lot of other stuff we got to take care of. Now, I am going to put a floor that's 10 centimeters thick. So in this case, if I want this to be a 2.3 meter tall cut here, I need to bump it up 10 more centimeters, right? Here we got everything snapping. Okay, there we go. So we got a wall unit now. No problem. Let's do a quick corner unit. We'll do an interior one. So we just combine these together. Take that 90 degrees, put it like so. Just join them together. There we go. I'll line these up real quick. Also optional, you don't have to, but there we go. So we got this going on. Now, it's important that it all is on the grid, it lines up, it's correct, and make sure you apply rotation and scale so that they all are sitting appropriately. Okay, however you see fit. Now let's go ahead and model a little section here. I want like a little, maybe like a little air vent thing, right? That maybe it's lights or air vent or something, just down here at the bottom like this. I know I'm going to make something else very similar, so I'm going to push it up to the top real quick. And now what we can do is go ahead and we can bevel this area just like that. That's fine for now. We're not going to get too picky here. We're not going to measure these things. We're just going to be trying to lay them out as quick as possible. So what I can do is I can go ahead and pull this down, and we'll turn it to the active element here. Snap it down like that. All right. Do that one up to the top as well. I only want that about that thickness there. Cool. Origin points, we need to move them around. And so there we go. We could put them in the center or off to the side. It's up to you. Once again, I like this. I think I'll run with that one. But we'll do a cube. And we'll go ahead and bump it up. And I'm going to go ahead and make this one a little bit thinner here. Something like so. And I'm going to cut this one in half and then go ahead and add some loop cuts here. Okay. And then go ahead and do that. All right. Let's make it a little bit thicker. I'm going to use Control and Shift to move, and we should be okay there. Let's bevel these corners, make it look a little bit more interesting. Not quite so abrasive, at least. All right, so we got that going on now. Let's make a power box real quick for the wall as well. And so this will be a little bit centered. I'm not going to do it quite like the other ones. You see, we can leave that pivot point in the middle there for the most part. And I'm just going to bring it all in. Okay, so we got this little power box going on. I want this power box to have a little cylinder that comes out of the base of it, but I want them to be separated. So I'm going to go ahead and make this cylinder 16 side, scale it down. We can leave it something like so. I think a little bit smaller would be nicer. So I'm just going to scale it kind of freely, but I want the ends to start and stop at a certain point. In this case, I think I'm going to do, could do a meter run, but I think a half meter run might be useful as well. More than likely, we won't see the top or the bottom of this thing, so I can delete those, call them out. And this little power box, make it look a little bit more interesting real quick. So I'll grab this loop, this face, let's do an inset, hold control, something like that. Okay. Now I got a bunch of stuff going on, which is nice. Make a little light fixture. There's a lot of things you need in order to start building up environments, right? So this is kind of part of the blocking method. It's you want to figure out what you need and where it's going to go and its rough approximate size and shape and everything else. So maybe this little light fixture here is something like this. It's just going to hang off the side of the wall. That number, you see I accidentally didn't move this side. Not a big deal. Line left. Machine tools is awesome for things like that. So do take advantage of it. Okay. And maybe we want some pipes. There's other kinds of pipes you can, of course, make. We're going to do a quick little modular pipe. And I mean, it's going to be quick. So we'll make it something like this here. And then we'll make a corner unit. And so some people wonder how you make wires or pipes. Wires you can make differently, but for a pipe, I would probably do something like this. So we can see this occupies 4 units. Might want the other one to occupy 4 units. I don't want it to be squared up or whatever. I'm putting something right here. This is a pretty harsh bend. Be a little bit challenging to create. So I might just run this out down here. Give it the same size. And let's see how this is actually going to work out in that area. So this is half meter. This is half meter, right? And so Now, figure our footprint should be okay. We can bridge edge loops here. Do this number of cuts, just increase it. And I'm going to change the smoothness here, but you can work this out different ways. This is just one way to do it, right? So this is a pretty thick little pipe section, and it's not necessarily needs to be this thick. It can be a lot smaller. So this one we want it to go to a half, right? Something like that. Delete the side faces. There we go. So now we're in business. Okay, they line up. Cool. We can shade them smooth. Doesn't matter. You know, auto smooth or nothing like that. So we got all these components starting to come together. We can shade things smooth, sharpen them, all that fun stuff. We do need a door plug, so let's do that real quick. This is going to be just a real quick one here. I'm going to separate it. I'm just going to scale this one for now. Okay. Just going to scale it and move it. And then I'm going to do an inset like this. I'll press KCA, cut off the bottom, just delete it. And I'm going to bring this all down. So it's a bit quicker to make a plug this way, in my opinion. Right. This I'm not going to delete at the bottom here. I want this to be a I got like a little edge down here that I don't want. Let's try. Okay, I guess I can't select it in that. Okay, I don't want that. And I don't want this either. That. I can start culling things if I need to. Separate that. Let's give this some kind of quick design. Nothing real special. So it looks a little bit more sci-fi like. Probably I could dissolve that one. This would be like a door. Doors usually have a little thickness to them as well, so probably want to bring that forward a little bit. Oh, I moved it to the right apparently. There you go. So yeah, something like that. It might need a key card or something else, so just gonna duplicate this face, bring it down, scale it, extrude it out. You can see how fast that goes, right? So here we have static mesh plug door. Just gonna call it door plug A. That's all in one piece. Static mesh um, door trim, door plate, door trim. I don't know what to call this thing. A floor trim. Okay, and so you need to name all this stuff too. You need to make sure your origin points are lining up exactly where you want them. In this case, this needs to be right here, right? So something, well, excuse me, right here. There you go. Because it wouldn't line up to the grid right here. So that's a little bit of a problem. And so the door plug itself, if this was a non-enterable door, like you're never going to use it, you can get away with this where you just more or less I'm going to grab this vertex. Well, let's select everything and merge it by distance real quick. We're going to take these two and place our origin point at the center. We can get away with this. However, a lot of times you need to make a door prefab because you might want to have them hinge or pivot at a certain area. Plus, you got to rig them and do all kinds of fun stuff, or at least set up some kind of way that it can open and close and collision boxes and stuff like that, right? So you get the idea. For static mesh door, this is fine, but otherwise, you might want to approach it a different manner. And so now what we can do is go ahead and start tagging everything else. This is going to be wall B. Oh, no, it's going to be SM wall door A. Okay, or you could do A door, or whatever the case. There's all kinds of ways you can set up your naming conventions. I might just add door at the end. That's usually a little bit easier. So we got wall A, and we got wall A, and so something like wall A corner. Then maybe small or something like that, right? put dimensions in there, things like that. So we'll just call it corner for now. And let's see, this is going to be sharpened. Oh, it is sharpened. Never mind. This is going to be static mesh pillar A. Going to be a. This actually needs the origin point up here. This one gets the origin point down there. Already is. Okay. This static mesh here has. Okay. So we got to start lining up all of our pivot points. This one's fine. This one is technically fine. That's fine. This one is not fine. I'm going to place it right here. All right, so now I got that. Might want to create a bracket system or some kind of mounting system for the pipes as well. This one should be okay. All right, I think we got everything, but we got to name them all. So call this static mesh ceiling trim A. Call this one static mesh floor trim A, or it could be wall trim A or whatever. Wait a second. We got. Oh, yeah, we'll call it wall trim then. Not wall trim. Or floor trim. Wall trim A. Alright, see, all the names are important, trust me. Gonna start to add up here real soon. What is this cylinder? Oh, static mesh. Pipe A, and this is gonna be a bend. So we'll do static mesh underscore pipe A. Let's see what else we got. Cube. Static mesh light fixture. Cylinder. Mesh. Electrical pipe. So you can name this whatever you want, right? This cube, static mesh, electrical box. Okay, there you go. So you can see how your list can get pretty crazy after a while, right? Most important thing is make sure everything is zeroed out when it comes to rotation and scale. So apply rotation scale. There we go. We have that going on now. We could also add some other things like little accent pieces. So we're going to do just one little accent piece, but so you can think of this as like a secondary detail to a wall unit. So all of this kind of acts like secondary details, but this is just going to be like a really tiny little piece here. It's behind the pillar right now, but when we place this, it won't be. So / I can isolate it. I do like an inset, extrude it in a little bit or something like this maybe, and then just bevel it. Not a big deal. Okay, something like that. Sharpen it. I want to make sure the pivot point on this is good. In this case, I actually might want it at the center because I want to kind of just place it wherever I want, but it could go in the bottom as well. Really depends on how you want to utilize this thing. So in this case, we're just going to go ahead and name it now. So static mesh wall addition A. There's other names you can use. Call that wall addition A. Okay, because it's an addition piece, it kind of comes out like so. All right. Now, all of these, real quick, select them all. Control A, apply rotation scale. It's very important. It should do it to everything, but maybe it doesn't. I don't know. So once that's done, though, we can actually uncheck. Well, yeah, uncheck this. Nope, don't uncheck it yet. We got to select it all, and we're going to right-click, mark as asset. These are all of our assets now. Okay, so we can now uncheck it. We're going to go to prefabs and check this. And let's go ahead and start setting some of these up. So we need, you see we got wall A corner, wall A door, all this fun stuff. This is where things get a little bit confusing because let's do wall A first. Zero it out. You have to have your origin point where this asset that we're creating here, it needs to be at the world origin. Okay, so the world origin point where it crosses, you need it set up like so because that's going to become a pivot point for you for this asset. So we'll go ahead, we'll use that for now. All right. And this is just placed as a static mesh right here. We need to move this to a new collection. We're going to call this prefab. We're going to call this wall A, and this is going to be variation 1. So something like that. And you can see it doesn't like the naming convention at all, apparently. So, because it's basically the same thing. Let's delete it a second. Let's see if that changes here for a second. We're putting this prefab collection into prefabs. So it's like this. All right. Now, let's try this again. Okay, whatever. If that's what it does, it does. But there we go. Oh, you know what? This is why it's doing it. Hold on, I think. When you take a wall unit or any asset here, you bring it out, the first time, click linked. It'll do it every time afterwards while you have Blender open. And so now, by backspace, it'll do this number. We won't worry about the name so much. So we can start to lay things out super fast and efficiently. Like if we want a pillar in the middle of this wall, we could do that, right? And if we want, maybe let's do some of those boards, those trim pieces real quick. So got floor trim. Well, no, we're not doing floor. This one we're gonna do. I just made all these and I can't find it. Wall trim. There we go. Zero it out. You can see when we zero it out, it still runs into the wall. So you could even bump these forward a little bit. That's fine. So ceiling trim's all the way to the front. That's why I don't see it, I guess. But we could do that for the ceiling as well. And we could leave this one in if we wanted. I want a 30 centimeter drop when it comes to the ceiling here. I have a little room to play up there, but in this case, this should work out okay. Also, I'm going to be putting a 10 centimeter floor in, so I can bump that up like so. And let's go ahead and add that accent to this one real quick. Wall addition. See, you don't drag it onto the mesh, drag it here. Just bump it out like so. It's a little bit too large, fortunately, so you can scale these, but they have to be uniform scaled. Also, one more mention here. Scale, you hold control, it snaps, it scales it appropriately. But if you wanted to make something like this and you want to kind of array it, Alt D to do a collection or to do an instance of this. And then once you do Alt D, it does a linked. You're gonna have to do that every time from now on, but something like this might be okay, right? Just gonna eyeball this one for now, but you can snap it to the grid. If you model it to the correct sizes, you can center align it pretty well. Okay, so we got one wall unit started. That's it. So that's prefab wall A, and we can actually just uncheck that, hide it, create a new collection here. You can see it puts it into this one for some reason, which is really weird that it does that, but all this should be a part of prefab wall A. We'll press N real quick. You see prefab wall A has 2 collections. So there's an additional collection in here we don't actually need. So that can go. That's what happened. Sometimes that happens. You got to find it. So if I do like a new collection here and I say prefab wall B 01, I can move this up to prefabs. Bam. And so there we go. Hide that one now. Work in this one. We drag out here. Should be okay. Okay, here we are. So we're going to do another wall. We could have worked off the same wall actually. So check this out. Could duplicate this collection. This is fine. We'll just change this to prefab wall A02. We'll just do a variation of this one because I want to have, personally, I want to have, oh no, I got both of them on. I'm deleting things I shouldn't. There we go. There we go. I'll delete that. I want this. And so this one might get the pillar, for example. I don't know. It depends on how you want to set up the pillar. But let's do the electrical box real quick. Not like that. This. There you go. So now we can run this one out. Maybe put that electrical pipe in there. That number. Bring it down a little. Bring it out a little. There you go. More or less set dressing, kind of, in a way. We won't put the, we'll put a little light fixture here at the top. Big light fixture, apparently, but we could do something like that. Scale that one down because it's too large. We can even toss a light right here. That's not such a bad deal, so render like that, right? This is, it should all be going into this prefab. All right, cool. Change that to like an amber color. All right. Let's go back to the main wall. I think we need some lights on this one too, right? Maybe smaller ones, but like 3 of them. Shift right click, place the cursor there. We'll do a light, just point light, drop it down a bit. Let's go ahead and do a couple amber ones again. Alt D, Alt D. There we go. So that one will light like that. Most part. And for whatever reason, sometimes things just get a little weird. These didn't go into the prefab. You guys drag and drop these around sometimes. It's just really kind of bizarre behavior. But it's helpful to kind of know what you're doing. So now we can do, let's say the, we're not going to do the corner. I think we're going to skip that, but let's do a door unit. Those trims wouldn't work on the door unit, so we're going to like this. Zero it out. We're going to move this to a new collection and call this prefab wall a door 0. Put that in the prefab collection. There you go. Now, drag and drop the door plug. Bam. That's way out of sync. Came way too far close. All right. Maybe this one we want the pillars always. That might be a possibility. Yeah, that one's way out of sync too. Just to make this happen, do that. We could actually use the ceiling trim here. So that we did want that drop down 30 centimeters. So you'll actually see if we did the ceiling like this too, it would cut right here. So that's something that would happen. Just keep in mind these are instances, right? So you can at any time in the prefab section usually you go through and select pieces and adjust them as needed. You can do things like that. So if you see a little bit of Z fighting, you can try to adjust things if you think it would work better without that being like that. So it works out quite well. And there we go. So we got that. Now we'll leave that one there. Let's do another Let's duplicate the collection here. Change this to wall A, and then we'll do 0, 3. And actually keep them in order, that'd be nice. But wall 3 here, maybe we don't want any of this stuff. Okay, and we might want, you know what, let's keep one of them. Keep one of them. Don't need all these lights probably though. Let's just leave one light. And do that in the center. Let's go ahead and add the electrical box. There we go. So now we got an electrical box. Kind of a big one. Could do small ones too. Can hold Control and Shift to snap to the centimeter grid, which is nice. Because you might have to, honestly. Like an Alt D, D. It's going to take a little while to get used to hitting Alt D kind of regularly, but it's something you have to do. These don't technically have to snap to the grid, but they can be helpful in a lot of situations as well, because you might have other assets that depend on it, such as we have the electrical pipe, which we might want to use right here. All right. So if those, for whatever reason, needed to snap in there, that would be extremely useful. I want to pull these ones out. Should all be getting created in here. Okay, so they are. Now, I want to make these pipes here real quick. Let's just drop them in. Once again, they came in way too close, but I'll rotate this one 90 degrees. This is going to be kind of fun, but rotate this 90 degrees the other way. So you see these snap together now, right? Using the grid. That makes life a lot easier. Because if I take this one and duplicate it or instance it, so Alt D, and run it down to the floor for the most part, no problems. Something like that. Maybe I need this over here. Like that. I'm going to scale this one up. Rotate it as well, 180 degrees, so I can get it down to the floor like that. Okay, so got some different variances here when it comes to pipe thickness, which is nice. These ones can actually be brought forward a little bit. All right, so we have this little unit set up. Cool. So I hit the wrong key. Yeah, it's not a good idea to accidentally hit those 1s, 2s, and 3s and stuff, but all right, so this one, I'm doing all the way to the bottom. I'm going to move up just a bit, and I'm going to move out just a bit. This is just a little additional detail. I'm going to inset, hold Control while insetting. I can do that number. Same process can kind of take place here, except you can do a loop cut, a bevel. Now you can grab these, inset them a little, hold Control. You can kind of see how pipes go together like super fast, right? You can make them a little bit more interesting. All right, so we're not spending too much time on this video because it's already running kind of long. Basically, your prefabs are now set up. World Origins here, that's going to be its pivot point. And it'll be the same for this one. Same for this one. I want to make sure I got, real quick, all of these should be up 10 centimeters here because we're going to do the floor last. So now, also the door, you might want to model the actual plug 10 centimeters up. That might be a possibility. Just something you might want to do. We're going to start working in scene. Oh, not yet. We need to take all of these right here, all these prefabs, You can select all of them, right click, and just do mark as asset. You'll see it creates those 4 as an asset. Okay. Now we can go to scene. We can turn off our prefabs, go to scene. We drag these out. If we press backspace here, it centers it up. You can see why that pivot point's important, because now we can snap to the meter grid. This was made to work on the meter grid, so you get the idea. We have lights, right? All of this is in the prefab. So we can work in the prefab to adjust things, edit the mesh, but here in the scene, you can't edit the mesh no more, all right? And so that's a little downside of the scene part. Now, personally, I don't like creating the scene here. I like actually doing another scene up here. So you click like a little plus sign, do new, you get a whole new scene to work in. All right, so that's something you could do, but you could work here as well if you wanted to. There's nothing wrong with that. And so now what we have going on is we can drag in these prefabs, zero them out real quick. It's the easiest way, I think, instead of trying to line them all up real quick. But these, anytime you adjust your mesh or your prefabs, they update, right? So these are always going to be instances. And you can see every now and then something just doesn't quite line up right, right? So this is where you find out for sure what's working and what's not working. In this case, this pillar is not working for me. Go back to prefabs, select one of them. I'm going to bump the whole thing out, I think. So we're going to bump this out to the grid, active element, okay. So we'll go just 10 centimeters more. That should correct that little issue. Turn them back off, come back here. Now we don't have Z fighting. Nice. Okay. Now, what I am going to do is I'll lay out some of the stuff here. I'm actually going to build it here, even though you shouldn't. And we won't do it. We'll go to Assets folder, and we're just going to create a cube. Go in Edit mode. Do this number real quick. 10 centimeter floor, right? Right. And let's backspace it real quick. / isolate it. It's definitely not lined up right. Okay. Still not lined up right, because apparently I didn't do that correctly. And it needs to go up 10 centimeters. There we go. And so we got the floor unit. Let's go ahead and tag this as static mesh floor file A. We'll go ahead and move this to assets. It goes up to assets here. We can right click, mark as asset. Done. All right. Good idea to save your scene, by the way. So we have our asset though, and we can just drag and drop it out. Cool. Make sure it's instance, select, place it like so. Alt D. Make sure we have it all in instance. Let's just move these all together real quick, and we're going to do active element. So that we're doing a group, so we gotta do that. We don't need one of those. All right, so because this is not a prefab, you could create your floors as prefabs as well. You don't have to, but we can certainly come in here, do a quick inset, press I, do this number, very small amount. I'm just going to extrude it up a tiny bit to give it a little depth there. We have like a tile floor basically. And I also might want to pull other things out like this floor trim. The floor trim here, we just line up to the center of the door. And may not have been thick enough, or I might have got it too far down or something like that. It's not thick enough. So we can extrude it up. Bevel it slight bit on one side. So we can get away with doing things like this, right? That's the fun thing about when you make modular kits is that you're not limited what you can do. If you want a thicker trim, there you go. And so that should be thick enough it won't Z-fight, not a big deal. Go to render preview, we can see we have our lights still in here. Not very impressive, but you get the idea. It's starting to work. And set this one a darker thing here, turn on some ambient occlusion because that's killing me. Oh, 33, I said 3, fool. All right, so you can start to see how this starts to lay out, right? Lots and lots of little things you can do. You know, your mind's the limit, right? Your imagination. You can even lay pillars out into this still if you wanted to. So drag one out. It's an instance. Zero it out. Maybe you want to put one here at the end. You can see it clips into that mesh, so maybe you want to realign that piece. All kinds of stuff you can do. Personally, I like that. So I might take this piece in the prefab area. And all this gets put into the scene. So prefab area, go to the wall unit we want, which was this one. Open it up. There we go. So these pieces here, just gonna move them a little bit inwards. And I'm just eyeballing this. There's certainly better ways of doing this, but you get the idea. So now that shouldn't clip over there. Right, back to solid view. Okay, and so this becomes a pretty awesome thing to do because if you really wanted to get crazy with this, you could do a whole corridor or like a quarter of a corridor or like the ceiling into the middle of the corridor. Then you can set up another side and you can make those prefabs as well. So you can do larger chunks, like larger sets of buildings and things like that, and then have this all going on. Now, it's just performance considerations. You don't want to use too many materials. Could cause problems with draw calls and all that. Now, also, you might run out of like memory if you use way too many instances or something like that as well. So I don't know all the technical side of it, but I do know it could be a problem. So sometimes you actually have to collapse some prefabs down into their own asset that acts like a regular asset instead of a bunch of subcomponents. I don't know exactly what happens there, but that is something that does occur. So just keep that in mind. And but overall, I think we can clearly see right now that this is very doable. I'm gonna add a. Oh yeah, you can also in your scene, you can keep adding lights. And I'm gonna add a light, but you can certainly, if you turn this all into a big prefab, you can add lights to that as well, right? So there's different times you might want to do things, but I think I'll go right here and I'll just turn the brightness up. That okay. And so that is pretty much it for um, collection assets, right? This is about as simple as it gets. It's pretty fun, and you can start laying out some pretty serious environmental pieces rather quickly doing this. Just have fun with it. Don't get too bogged down in it. Just play with your assets the most, and then work them into prefabs later. For the most part, the more assets you create that look better and they line up, in a prefab, awesome. This is really like the best workflow for this kind of stuff because you're not limited in any way, and you can just, if you ever need a new prefab, you just create a collection instance duplicate, modify it, create another prefab, which works, And of course, what we're doing here is the manual way of doing this. The Unreal Engine 5 Matrix demo, they used Houdini to set up all the different elements of the world and the environment. But more or less, these assets are what they use for the most part, or something similar to this. And so they just had it scattered basically using a generator, a very complicated generator. But um, so just keep that in mind. This is how everybody used to do things. It's probably going to become more procedural using things like Houdini. But all in all, the base mesh, the art pieces, hasn't evolved too much since I don't know. It's been a while now. 2012ish, I think. I forgot when PBR textures was introduced. It was like early. It was like 2010, somewhere around there, I think, right? Something like that. Anyways, it hasn't really changed since then. Other than we're probably not going to have to bake into the futures. Well, probably won't have to do high poly mesh and bake to a low poly mesh into the future. It's going to be more like a mid poly workflow. All right, and so things like that start to come to mind as you look at like Unreal Engine 5 nanite demo and all that. So model this kind of stuff out, UV map it, texture it if you need to in Substance Painter and all that, and have fun. These can become your game models like super fast these days. All right. Anyway, so with all that in mind, hope you enjoyed the video, and I will check you out in the next one. All right, take care.